Welcome to this e-commerce online meeting tonight, hosted by Tyfu Cymru. Thanks for joining us, and great to see many familiar names coming through. We're delighted to have our 4 growers sitting on the panel with John. So thank you to Rick, Rich, Rob and Neil. We're really grateful to you for giving up your time tonight. I'm going to hand over to John and Linda from BIC, who are running tonight's session. But first, just a couple of housekeeping rules. So if you could remain muted with your cameras off until the questions at the end, we'd be very grateful. And for anyone who isn't familiar with using Zoom, if you hover your cursor down to the bottom left, you'll find you can click on the mute or unmute. We kindly ask you to use the chat function down at the bottom in the middle to make comments or to ask your specific questions. We'll pick questions up as we go through from there, but if there's anything that we haven't answered, we can cover that at the end. Tonight's meeting is being recorded, and it will be posted on our Knowledge Hub within the next couple of days. If you accidentally leave, don't worry, you can rejoin using the same link. So thank you. I'm now going to hand over to John and Linda from BIC. Over to you, John. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Sarah. My name is John Taylorson. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. We've got a panel, just to quickly introduce them. We've got Neil from St Nurseries, Richard Bramley, Rob Evans and Rick Kenwood. So they are going to be sharing their experience and their insights, and hopefully helping answer questions that you might have, which you can pop up at any point in the chat function. We're going to try and run through, if we can have the next slide, please, Anna. We're going to try and run through what e-commerce is and cover off some of the key issues, but that doesn't mean that we've answered all your questions. So please, by all means, stick anything you like in that chat function for us to deal with as we go. Okay, so e-commerce, we all know that online has become much more important as a route to market. However, the economics of going online needs some thought. The questions people ask themselves: will I gain incremental volume and value sales, as in not cannibalize existing sales and drive up my costs? Will I upset my existing customers who I sell to perhaps wholesale? Will I actually make money given the amount of additional labor, packaging, back office systems, or whatever else I might need? Do I even know what the indicative costs should be? And the answer, of course, to all this is depends. And it depends on a lot of things, but the fundamental is probably about knowing who your customers are. Can you target a segment, that being the group of people, of customers who will behave in a similar way and respond to promotions perhaps in a similar way? Targeting through the internet via social media, direct mail, the dark arts at our PR, that means that you might reach more people of your type of customer, but those who are normally out of your geographic reach. So what are we all waiting for? Well, will it work? What will it cost? How much time and effort? What do I need in place to make it work? What sort of website? How much do they cost? Do I sell other people on other people's websites or on my own? And this is the business of aggregation versus disintermediation. I love those words. We'll explain what we think they are later. What do other people do in this area? Hopefully we're going to find out. And of course, it seems that many people are just going for it. And going for it is the business term for proceeding without knowing whether something will actually work or not. Of course, we're having to do that because, of course, the market has moved online for a lot of people and may well continue to do so. So here's the opportunity to learn from other people how e-commerce is working. And the definition of e-commerce is, of course, anything from a web page with a phone number right the way through to all sorts of complicated online things that people can do. And of course, the key thing is also that it can be there engaging with your customers even while you're asleep. Anna, can we have the next slide, please? The great thing about online is it's very often money up front, and you can control your offer because you're presenting it there. And you can also do new product testing, even if, particularly if people are putting together new assortments and gift packs and the like. But of course, it's a very noisy environment, the internet, and just shouting louder on the internet doesn't seem to work. Anna, next slide, please. It's very difficult for any of us to actually define exactly how much more the internet is doing this year, because for everybody with any retail offering online, growth has been literally exponential. And of course, we don't know how sustainable that is, but it's plain that a lot of people have taken to the internet when they haven't been able to go out. And of course, once they've gone there and they've had that experience, they're not likely to turn back. But that overall spend per household appears to be considerably, well, certainly something worth going for, but in potentially double-digit growth. Anna, next slide, please. And the kind of things people buy, it's not just plants and the like, it's all the other paraphernalia that potentially can be sold at any time of year and or has a much longer shelf life. So of course, it could be that you're not just selling your own produce, but you could be factoring, as in buying in products and selling those on. Next slide, please. So I talked about earlier about this business of aggregation versus disintermediation. And I know they're lovely buzzwords, but is this fundamental to what e-commerce and the internet is all about? The cost of selling online is very much determined by the size of the basket that people create on a website. And of course, that depends on either how many things you've got to sell or how many people you can attract to your website. So the aggregator, the people like Amazon and the like, the people who can attract a large number of people and sell a large number of things, tend to have baskets full of other people's products. Disintermediation, that direct dealing with a grower, could be that you've got something that you can't, people can't get from anybody else, and that attracts them to your site. Problem is that you may not have such a large basket, and therefore the cost of that transaction could be higher. Anna, next slide, please, if we can. And I know it sounds like we're pointing out the obvious, but very often it's that transaction cost that very much determines whether or not online is such a good idea for you and your business. On the one hand, if you can stick a pallet into a wholesaler and that's one transaction, one invoice raised, and somebody else has got the problem of doing all those other transactions, that's a cost you've avoided. On the other hand, if you've got the system to support it, disintermediation, dealing with individuals and doing those individual transactions could well be well worthwhile. And of course, the answer is people tend to do a bit of both. So this is the point at which I'd like to introduce our panel again and start talking about some of these particular issues, because I think the key point here is what sort of business do people see? And if we Richard, if we can just talk to you for a moment about your website and the ability to manage stock and know what people are going to buy. Do you want to just talk to this point about transactions for us, please?
Say managing stock is an absolute nightmare. If we were just an online retailer, then it would be fairly straightforward, but because we've got multiple outlets and multiple selling places, stock management is probably the biggest problem we have. But you know, what do you want me to say? What? Maybe a bit more specific.
Just answer that question. Stock management is the biggest problem we might have. Rob, that's Rob Evans. That's something that you've dealt with as well, isn't it?
We have this year. We found the stock management, especially early on in the season, during the cut off from the shows, the website just took over, and the stock management actually works through the system. So we input the number of plants that was available for that week, and the stock automatically, when somebody orders, gets taken off the system immediately. So it was helping with our stock. We knew what was available, and as stock became available, we could then add it onto the website with a number of plants that were available.
Yeah, so it's really, if you've got it, you can sell it, but if you haven't got it, it can't be bought off the website.
Quite right.
There you go. Neil, being further upstream, you see this happening with other people?
Yeah, a lot of our bigger, we supply mail order customers. A lot of our bigger customers, they'll make an indication, not a reserve, an indication of stock required, so say 5,000 units for a certain week. Then they call it off as they sell it. So sometimes in a successful week, we'll sell the full 5,000. In other cases, it takes 3 or 4 weeks to actually sell that on. So that shows a lot of a lot of planning is required by the retailer to plan their numbers required, really.
And you say plan their numbers required. How far ahead is that planning going on?
We're taking orders now for all the way through next year. So starting about week 6, week 8, it peaks around week 16 to 22. There are peak weeks to supply mail order companies. Then we have various offers that going on through the summer on key items and new launches then.
So the key thing about that then is those two things that accountants love is forecasting and budgeting. How much you're going to sell, how much you're going to sell it for.
That's right. Yep.
Did Rick, did you want to add anything to that?
We have a similar system in that it's a live back end. All of the stock as it is sold through the internet is automatically taken off our stock control system. And it also, the system allows us to put in suppliers' orders that are coming in, and also to determine stock. We can break into categories of new or old stock. So if it's new stock, it may have rooted in the meantime. We can analyse and go over to that bed and say, okay, we're running short of a geranium. We'll go over, we'll check that newly potted stock. Yes, it's ready. Therefore, we can upload another 300 units onto the web.
So you're all talking about things that are effectively the benefits of what we'd call enterprise resource planning or ERP systems. But obviously, none of you have gone to the trouble of having, well, most of you haven't gone to the trouble of investing in a big ERP system. The key thing being that you don't want to be offering for sale something online that you don't have the stock for. Anna, do you want to just move us on to the next slide, please? So the key thing here is, of course, is now that we know we've got something to sell, how much are we selling it for? And pricing is a really critical factor for two reasons, really. One, at the obvious end, you want to make money. Two, it's your positioning in the market and where that sits with wholesale. And, you know, it's, again, coming back to this issue of how do you do that and first of all, position your products so you're making money, but equally supporting anybody you're wholesaling to. Neil, wholesaling and the pricing, how does that work with cost in the supply chain if you're operating on different margins?
Yeah, our margins are quite low. Our volumes are fairly high, and the margins low. We'll see, say, a young plant, a 9 centimetre pot going from us as £1. We'll see that being retailed online at it ended between £8 and £10. So it's quite a big markup, but that's probably required by our customers because of the marketing costs, wastage, failed deliveries, and returns as well.
Right. So perhaps there's a missing element in here, which is that wastage figure for your gross margin.
Yeah.
And does that differ very greatly between different channels?
Well, we don't see it. We see from our customers, what we hear back is certainly this year, when it was very, very busy, there's a lot of plants went missing in various couriers, various postal systems. People's expectations are also very high, so they can the picture of a product to look fantastic in a garden setting, then receive a little 9 centimetre pot. It's not what they expect, so they demand refunds or returns. So it needs to be well thought out. Each product needs to be well thought out and described pretty correctly.
Right. Right. And Rick, coming back to you and your system of putting to stock and whether you've got stuff there, plainly with online, you've got this issue of sunk, fixed and variable costs. So if you're calculating the profitability, how much of that is dependent, or how dynamic does your pricing have to be, potentially when you've got already the sunk cost of investing in a website and the fixed costs of maintaining it, and then having to look at still make a margin on individual products?
We basically target, our market is targeted at offering the range, and we don't work so much to the price point. Our average order value is just under 60 quid. you know, so we're working on the basis of the order value and the volume that we're turning. We have very little wastage because we're dealing with herbaceous perennials. A lot of the lines can be recycled as such or potted on for the following season. So from that perspective, it makes it, with the order value and the price that we can set, it makes it a lot easier to absorb any courier losses, etc.
Brilliant. Richard, is that your experience in that you've pricing and wastage costs within that can be defrayed?
Yeah, we certainly, because we are sort of grower retailers, we have very little in the way of waste. And what Rick was saying, you know, you can either pot it on, split it up, take things off of it, and generally recycle. But the one thing that we find with web sales, because we also sell from the nursery and from, we've got a shop and market stall, is that we can get a premium price for a lot of the stuff. So a lot of the more unusual bits and pieces that we can grow, we will make a lot more money on, a lot higher gross margins than the norm that we can sell from the nursery. So it's quite a useful tool from that point of view. It enables us to have a much bigger range.
Brilliant. Anna, can you just take us to the next slide? Because I was going to talk to Robert about this pricing issue, because one of the things that that I know worries people is that they think they sometimes have to do it at a discount if you're dealing direct, but in reality, people are paying for convenience and they're not actually comparing you with anybody else at the moment they're online, perhaps. Rob,
no, a lot of the time when we are selling plants online, we are most probably one of maybe 3 companies in the UK that are actually selling these varieties. So we can ask a premium price. If we find that something's not selling, then the project is we pot it on, we grow it on, we plant it out into the field. So we're using it then as a cut flower crop during the summer months. And also we have the roots that are in the ground. We lift the tubers in like we're doing at the moment. And then we've got another product that can be sold in January, February, but it's live on the website all the time as a tuber. Right throughout the year, people can order tubers at any time of year. We know the quantity that we've got in the field. We know the quantity that we've got in either 3 litre or 5 litre pots. So there's always a marketable plant there and a value in the plant all the time.
And where do you see the, because Richard was talking about his average transaction value. I don't know if that included the delivery cost. Where do you see delivery cost as being part of that price proposition?
The way we've set our pricing up is that to make it worthwhile, they've got to buy a minimum amount of plants. So for instance, they've got to buy 3 plants. Our packaging is all made to hold 3 plants. We've worked the system so that we know what sizes and weights we can go to. So therefore, keeping the price of the packaging down and also making the profit on the plants is a good profit as well as a good price for people. Because I think a lot of people, when they're buying plants online, that's the first thing they look at is what is the cost of postage and packing. Because a lot of them, they think it's just post office or the courier cost. They don't realize that the box has a price, the packaging time has a cost, and this is what we have to realize when we're making that price per plant.
Yes, so you're back to my point about the gross margin then. It's not just the plant, it's all the cost of sale element that you've got to consider as well.
Exactly, yes.
So yourself and maybe Richard, you're incentivizing people to purchase a minimum transaction value to make the thing profitable for you.
Yeah, so we too have a 3 plant minimum order. Just because, for several reasons, we don't want to just put 1 plant in a box. It's just not cost effective. And I think you have to do something. And you're quite right, postage costs are a big one. And I do wonder sometimes if we've got it slightly wrong. And maybe we should put the prices up and charge less for carriage. But we've got a bit of a dilemma in that we sell to the general public as well. And you'll get pricing issues and all sorts of problems like that if you're not careful. So well, it's not quite easy, is it?
I mean, that's what the marketing guys would talk about, positioning. Price is one of the key elements of positioning. And you know, Robert's talked about the fact that he's only one of 3 growers that offers a certain proposition. Do you worry that you've got a conflict between your online shop and your actual physical shop with pricing?
No, not really. When people come to the nursery, the prices are set at the same as what we sell online, and most of the customers that come to us, they're quite happy paying the price at the nursery as what they do online. And I think the end product is that they cannot get certain varieties that we grow from anywhere else in the country, and that makes a difference. If they want it, they'll pay the higher price for it. So therefore, the margin that we're making is a lot bigger.
Brilliant. Can we just move on to the next slide, please? Because just to build on this point, is obviously what works online and what doesn't. I mean, gents, I mean, obviously it goes without saying that you want non-breakable packaging. And I know, Rob, you were talking about you even go to the trouble of how you pot out to make sure that it's compliant with your packaging to avoid that. Can you just explain that to us a little bit?
We went to the Welsh box company to have a box purposely made for us to send our plants out. And the first year, this was about 3 years ago, we had the box made. And when we started sending the first lot of plants out, I realized that when we folded the box and we put the lid back down, it was resting, the block that the box made rested against the plant. So it was above the pot to stop the pot going further anywhere in movement in the box. But what we hadn't adjusted for was the swelling of the stem while the plant was growing. So sometimes when you pushed the box down, we ended up breaking the odd plant. So that year, we had halfway through the season when we were starting the pot, we positioned the plant 1/4 of an inch further to one side of the pot. So when we were packing, we had more room then just to fold the box over. And ever since the last 2 years, we've had, on average, I would say 4 or 5 plants returned with breakages.
Yeah, so you've got very, very low wastage figure. Rick, what do you have a calculation for your wastage figure?
It's so minimal as a percentage of the business that I couldn't say off the top of my head, to be honest with you. November is the time where I have all the insurance renewals, everything. That is my month where I sit down and recalculate everything, and that's when I do all my figures. That's when I renegotiate all of our prices and everything from the house insurance through. But it has been incredibly small. Having said that, our carrier has just changed, and that is now becoming a factor that I am going to have to look at because it has increased.
Or the wastage figure or the cost of distribution?
The cost of the distribution went up as a result of changed carrier. But I think with COVID, the couriers are overrun. I don't think they're geared up necessarily. Whether you're with the worst or the best, you are going to experience more losses than you did prior to COVID. And because of that, it's something that you have to look at really carefully now.
Richard, do you calculate that into your cost of sale, the wastage and that distribution cost?
No, not really. I have to say the only real trouble we get is sloppy carriers. I'm sure that they boxes upside down and things like that. And it is pretty minimal. We're with DPD and we find them really good. And other than that, it's operator error. The one that we get more with is people forgetting to put plants in the boxes and things like that. And don't ask me why it happens, because it shouldn't. But they're the ones, and that again is relatively minimal. So it's all been a quite good experience.
And I mean, obviously, you wouldn't want to name names of couriers that you can't speak highly of. But are there any particular types or style of courier? Because we've got a question through about who can you recommend? I mean, obviously, are they all the same? Do you get a different level of service for a different price?
We tried several different companies, and we've gone back to DPD, and they've given us a much better deal now. Anyway, the same old sort of place.
I've been with DPD for the last 4 years, and we found them the best company. You know, even a lot of our customers say when we're telling them we send out by DPD, they are happy to know that they're coming by DPD.
And how quick are any of you actually? How quick? Because we've got somebody here saying, does it have to be 24 hours? I mean, I think
we send ours out on a 24-hour. They normally pick up from us. We've got we're quite close to the main hub. They pick up from us around about 4:30 every day, and you know, we're getting people in Manchester, Liverpool saying the next day that they were there by 10 o'clock the next morning.
Right. Neil, are you seeing
same here.
Yeah. Neil, are you the supply chain able to support very quick turnarounds?
Yeah, okay, well, we're basically nursery to nursery, so we're shipping our product on Arctics, basically on Danish trolleys. But we do, from our point of view, we have to get plants to pack houses by quite tight time scales, which is quite difficult actually. You could have a wagon with 4 deliveries on, and it has to be in Spalding by a certain time, before midday on a Wednesday for shipping that week. So that's, from our point of view, we have to service our customers quite reliably in that sense.
I was thinking more of that issue about lifespan. I mean, you've got products that people expect to arrive in prime condition, and
yeah,
I know with us.
Sorry, with our products, they're in transit for 2 days, and they're packed again then, and onto the final customer. Then, with a 24 or 48-hour service from then on.
I know with DPD, we have 2-day courier to some places in the country, like for instance, the Isle of Wight, the Isle of Man, certain parts of Scotland, and still the quality of the plants after 2 days is still really good in the boxes.
Oh, excellent. Just at this point, I'd like to ask is, because the other thing that we haven't listed here that a lot of other online companies do is sell subscriptions and gifts and vouchers. Do any of you guys offer that? Rick, you're nodding there. What do you offer, and is it a good revenue stream as a product in its own right?
Sorry, was that to me?
Yes, sorry, Rick.
Yes, sorry. Yes, we do gift vouchers that can be bought online. They can be dated to be emailed through on a date-specific basis. So if somebody has a birthday on November the 23rd, you can buy it today, put that date in, and it will email across to them. We do find that the sales from them are quite good. I wouldn't say they're phenomenal, but it is something that we find, at the right times of year. Generally, the husbands dive on at the last minute, and they're quite happy to be able to produce something.
And of course, that's just an email, is it? I guess, is it, rather than a physical delivery? We can do it. We can do it as it is a gift voucher. We will do it manually if people ring up over the phone, and it can sort of be adapted really to however the customer contacts us and what suits their method best. Yeah, Richard, I think you were going to come in on that one.
Yeah, we do 3 different types of gift vouchers. We do the Horticultural Trades Association one, which are pretty national. We do, like Rick was saying, we do an email one, which has got a specific code, and we do also do our own farmyard nurseries ones. The thing I can't stress enough with our website is that not only is it an e-commerce website for selling, but it's also a shop window to pull people into the nursery, and they do travel for miles and miles and miles. So the actual paper Farmyard Nurseries gift vouchers are probably the biggest one we sell.
So in terms of revenue, is it a significant proportion then of the sales online?
Not a huge amount, no.
No. Rob Evans, where do you see vouchers and subscriptions?
We do vouchers, and we find it's most probably only about 2% of the business online. It's not a great amount, but it has been building this year due to people not being able to get birthday gifts to people, and we found through COVID it was slightly higher than normal. Okay,
but of course with Christmas coming, it's another way of avoiding that problem if people can't move around again. The other cost of sale that I think people often forget about is the merchant cost, the transaction cost of processing payments. Rick, what do you have any recommendations or a rule of thumb in terms of what that cost should be?
We pay anything. With WorldPay, we've negotiated a price across our terminal range. We have, we had 2 retail outlets, the website itself, and then we process payments in the office. The terminal costs are run between about 12 and 15 quid per terminal, and then your percentages are done on volume. So the more money you're putting through, the better your rates are. Hence, again, that's part of the November process, is to sit down and to ring up WorldPay and say to them, right, well, this year we've turned over an extra so much. We want a better rate. At the moment, I think off the top of my head, we're paying anything from about 0.04% for debit cards. And then obviously you go up to the corporate credit cards where they start getting silly percentages, really.
Richard, do you share those sentiments?
I think we need to negotiate better deals by the sound of it. But yes, it's the same old story, isn't it? You've got to play sides against the middle. We're with SagePay at the minute, and they certainly did us a better deal than Visa Debit. But I think it's time all the while. It's time actually being able to sit down and put aside the time to do all these things. And
of course it's a key element in the transaction. Is, I know some people have been put off by PayPal in the past online, and they didn't want to put their details into that. So having a nice slick merchant is quite helpful. Rob Evans.
Yes, we don't actually take PayPal anymore on the website. We find that we go straight through the merchant, and we found them really good. And most people, what we find is if they try to use PayPal, then it'll reject it. And what we get then is a failed order coming into us. We ring the customer after if they haven't gone back and paid by through the terminal. And we find that when we ring them back, they say, oh, they wanted to pay by PayPal, but then they'll say that they'll pay over the phone, so we take the transaction manually.
Right. Okay. One of the questions that come in is also asking about bundling of plants, and where people have got particular needs like shady areas and what have you. Do you find that, coming back to what you were talking about earlier, Rob, about suggesting to people what they're purchasing and why they're purchasing it, that the more you educate people, the more you can get that transaction value up?
Yes, what we've done over the last 2 years, we started off doing collections where we had 3 plants of different dahlias, for instance, and with the gladioli, collections of gladioli. And we started increasing, we were doing 3s, 9s, 12s. And to the fact now that we do a collection of dahlias of 20 plants, and we're finding that where we are selecting them and, calling it, even say for Rob's choice, something like that, people, because on the nursery, they think that better, and they'll buy that selection.
Yeah.
So it's pushing something that you are happy selling. And for instance, the variety changes, not necessarily using new varieties. Like lots of people still like to see the old varieties. So, it's having a good mix in there. But the good thing is, if you can propagate 1,000 cut in something a lot quicker than you can 300 or 400 off something else, then if you get those, they're good for collections, because that they will always be available to go into the collection. If you're doing a collection, you've always got to have that collection available. What people don't like are substitutes. Yeah. And I think that is, where you order something, somebody says they want this particular variety, the worst thing you can do is send them something that they haven't ordered.
Neil, this plays nicely to what you were talking about earlier, which is budgeting and forecasting and working with people to forecast what they might want to sell and how they might promote it.
Yeah, I mean, we work 12 months ahead with most of our customers. Most of it's based around new varieties, so we can make an offer on, say, a new geranium, 10,000 units, and work ahead that way. We give them the price, obviously they negotiate, and we come up with an offer that way.
I mean, obviously in marketing, one of the ways of getting prices up is by introducing new products. And in your case, I guess it's new varieties and other features that people can't compare with the existing market.
Yeah, basically work with breeders from around the world, so we get varieties which they cannot buy elsewhere. In many cases, we have either full exclusivity for the UK and Europe for 1 or 2 years, or ongoing further on beyond that as well.
And Rick or Richard, is that the best way to get prices back up again? Is it by introducing new products or new varieties?
I think really a lot of it, you've got to be very aware that if you drive prices down, it's just a race to the bottom. Everybody in the industry should be talking the prices up. We're incredibly labour intensive. Yes, new products are always going to have a premium because there aren't comparable prices. Our business doesn't. We don't battle against other websites based on the price. We do it as we have a range, and we're a one-stop shop in the sense of a real plantsman will come to us and will find 10 things on the website to buy, whereas they might go to somebody else and only have the one. So therefore, we're selling it on the range rather than a price. And I think the problem with the industry is you've got to be really careful. Don't just battle to make the least money out of everybody. It's a real risk.
Yeah, I mean, Richard, that thing back to pricing again. I mean, once you've got people online, and particularly if there's a crisis on and they haven't got the choice, surely price is the least of their worries. If they want it, they'll pay for it.
Yeah, I think trying to group all of your customers into one bracket is quite difficult, because you'll get the customers who want anything at any price and they don't really care and they don't go anywhere else. We try and pride ourselves on range being the biggest issue, and I quite agree with Rick. You know, you just need to keep throwing varieties at them and different bits and pieces. Could I just quickly mention collections, because our collections have been a massive success on our website. We don't actually specify the varieties, so we actually send out collections, our selection, and it is just incredible. It means that you've got a line that's not quite selling as quickly as you want it to sell, and you can push it onto that one. It's been a massive success. We do slightly discount the price for our collection, though.
Is that a case of rewarding people if they get a volume discount? If you can get the transaction value up, you can afford to soften the blow for people.
I think it's more a case of, you know what growing's like. You start off with a cut-in and you've got to try and anticipate what's going off 2, 3, sometimes more years ahead. And inevitably you get it wrong. And the good thing about collections is that you can absorb those wrong numbers, and it's all about cutting down waste again.
Right. Anna, that takes us to our next slide, I think, pretty much, because one of the things that, and we'll come back to packaging again in a moment, but one of the things that did want to talk about was the cost of actually communicating with people, because of course people think that it's, social media, that's free of charge. I don't know about you, but I have never found or been offered a job where I can sit and play on Facebook all day. It's quite expensive. Rob, I don't suppose you sit and play on Facebook all day. Does social media or the cost of communication, how do you factor that in as a cost of sale?
I'm fairly lucky having 3 young ladies in the house. They're really great. I'll produce a photograph, they'll put it on Facebook, Twitter, so that's something that they'll do for me. But I think if we were having to obviously have somebody in as a cost, that for them to be doing marketing like that, then obviously you've got to look at the cost of it again. And I don't think it's, we link the Facebook, the Twitter to our website. And what we do find is that when people start, especially in the main growing season in the spring, when people are starting planting things, there's always plenty of interest on Twitter and Facebook of what's being planted. And as long as you can piggyback on that, then you'll find that your sales do go up. As long as you've got something that will interest the customer and they know that they can get a very good product from you.
So it's about what the fashion is going to be and how much influence there is with that. In terms of
Yes,
cost,
I think, we're very lucky at the moment that in general, gardening, most things are selling plant-wise really well. And I think, we're all going to be looking at what's going to be happening over the next 2 or 3 years. Is it going to be color changes? Because especially for myself with the flower industry, we could have somebody at the moment, we're all on pastel shades, or we're going to be on dark shades, so we've got to look at which way we're going to go with that. And we've really got to be trying to push it ourselves, so that instead of, we're the leaders in the industry, and we've got to try and push them to be buying certain things. As Neil was saying earlier on, he's looking at 18 months, 2 years down the road with what they are growing. We look at the same to see which way the themes are going to go, the color themes and the trends in gardening.
and how do you cost that though? How do you budget for that? Is it just one of the fixed costs of doing business?
It is a fixed cost, and I think, the more we're actually putting time into it, then it's something that we will have to start costing, because, a trip away for maybe 2 or 3 days, to conferences, or to look at other areas where things are being grown, be it other parts of the world. At the moment we can't, but, during the summer months, if it's a trip to Holland to see what's being grown out in the gladiolis, a trip in the spring to see what tulips and daffodils are being, and the things that are coming on new, it's all expenses which has got to be budgeted into the costings of not just buying the product, but you've got to market that product as well. Like, for instance, a lot of people don't realize that if they take photographs, when they take a photograph, you should actually copyright that photograph, because anybody can use it on any other website. Now, the Dutch were very good at this years ago. They take the photograph, the copyright is on it. But what did they do as well? They have people who will actually trawl the website looking for people who have actually used their photographs. So making sure that you take your own photographs, that will cut your costs down as well.
Yeah, well, particularly before a paralegal gets hold of you for some copyright infringement.
Yes.
Neil, are you forking out for expensive Instagram and YouTube influencers to influence the market 18 months, 2 years down the road as to what colours you're going to be growing and promoting?
Not really, no. We do a little bit by ourselves. We have obviously the usual Twitter, LinkedIn and Facebook accounts. That's all very random. We keep in touch with people that way, and it attracts a good group of customers, mainly the small to medium-sized grower retailers and wholesalers. So we don't really sort of spend that much time, or definitely nobody doing that. Most of our communication is by, direct contact. Obviously not this year, but usually trade shows. So we exhibit at 4 trade shows in this country and 1 in Europe usually as well.
It's got to be costed in. Rick, do you cost it? Is it fixed or variable cost for you? The cost of maintaining and updating the website, making sure that you haven't got an unseasonal, seasonal promotion on the website?
We budget for 3 paper catalogues a year we send out. I have started doing MailChimp. I started off with 10,000 post out, and that was sort of earlier this month actually with Eddie from InSync. Well, as a result of the sort of results from that, I've upgraded the subscription to 25,000 names and posted one out today. When you look at Google Analytics to see what the response rate is, it's very encouraging. So we find that budgeting for the catalogue and things like MailChimp and boosting a Facebook post occasionally is one way of doing it. The other thing is, though, the best thing we find is free PR, in the sense of writing something for the paper, or Claire gets asked to supply an image, and they will, as a result, credit the photo to us. And they're the best ones because they're free, and they bring a percentage return on them as well. Whereas obviously the catalogue, MailChimp, etc., do cost money.
I'm duty bound to say that obviously that the time and effort isn't free. So I assume that's, again, you've got a sort of fixed cost line in the business that says we are going to have to spend or allocate proper time and attention to that sort of PR and underlying promotion.
Yeah, again, though, it comes down to everybody's separate cases. Let's say, for example, if I'm paying somebody £10 an hour to do some potting that I would otherwise be doing, or I could be doing a MailChimp and generating £5,000 of sales that wouldn't have come otherwise, and it takes me 3-4 hours to do that MailChimp, well, I know where I'd rather allocate my time to. Obviously, with the figures I'm saying, they're all hypothetical and they're turnover figures, they're not necessarily profit and all that, but you do have to weigh up what's the best allocation of your time. We're all guilty of being too busy to actually stop and work out whether what we're doing is the right thing to be doing.
And just on that then, where you do direct promotions, and I'm thinking where people might use Facebook and have very targeted ads, would you treat that as a variable cost in that you've got something to particularly promote and therefore the cost of promoting it would be allocated to it? Or would you just see that being part of the cost of doing business?
We do. We don't build in Facebook as really a proportion. With the MailChimp, we are keeping in contact with existing customers that have bought. So those 25,000 have bought from us, say, in the last 12 months or whatever. So we're going back to revisit them. And the Facebook and the Instagram are more about keeping the branding there and keeping our name in front of people so that they have a familiarity with the brand and a comfort level to purchase from us. So we build, in answer to the question really, the Facebook and the paid side of it is more the fluffy side that helps reinforce the branding, and the MailChimp is the business side, which is actually generating the turnover.
Right. So when I was being slightly facetious with Neil about the how much he was forking out for Instagram influencers, but Richard, I mean, do you see this, the cost of direct promotion or indirect brand building? Do you build that into your model?
Not really. Facebook.
Should you?
Should I? No, I don't think so. I think I think that you get a feel for things when you're a relatively small business. You get a feel for things. You know how much money to spend on advertising. I'm not quite as organised as Rick. We do use Campaign Monitor instead of MailChimp, and it is very, very cost effective. And we try and send out 2 emails a month, balancing up. We don't want to over email people and become a nuisance. We try and keep those 2 emails, one to a selling email and one to an information email, so they're getting added value from that point of view. Facebook is just incredibly efficient. We've got a good Facebook following. Never pay for a Facebook ad. Don't find it necessary. Instagram is good. Yeah, it's just a general feel you get for things. Obviously, it has to be paid for, but it's just built into the general costings.
General cost. And in terms of measurement of that, you say you get a good feel, but if you had to put numbers to it, do you think the cost of sale, how would you judge what the right amount is to spend, or is it more a case of getting a response from the customers and building awareness?
Yes, I think there's lots and lots of factors involved, and I think cost and return is only one of them. There's goodwill. There is keeping your customers happy. There is, like Rick was saying, maintaining a brand. I think it's a massively complicated thing, and it's all right to say, well, yeah, Campaign Monitor costs me £100 a month, and I get back from it such and such and such. But how do you factor into it how many customers you get coming to the nursery, how many go to the shop, how many tell their friends, and so on and so on? I think it's just generally plugging away in every avenue you can.
And that brings us, Rob, back to something I was going to ask, if any of you've spent money, but I imagine you've, like your accidental ERP system, you've got an accidental CRM system, a customer relationship management system, where, like Rick was saying, with managing MailChimp, you effectively, through all of these systems and having an online, end up with some intellectual property around your own database.
I think that's the important bit when we start off, when they come onto the website, first of all, you've got to offer them something to join up to MailChimp. And, for instance, the first order, there's a discount. So they do that on their first order. Then you've got them as a customer, but what you've also got them as, you've got them so that you can go back to them again. And once you know what they're purchasing, you can actually then to look at identifying, like, are they buying spring products? Are they buying autumn products? So then you can actually send the relevant information at the right time to them so that you know what they're going to buy.
Yeah, that's great. Anna, can we just pop on to the next slide, please? Because with one of the things that we've got on here is that one of the sort of metrics that people can use, and Rick, if I could start with you, I don't know if any of these are ones that you use, but I know in the past people have targeted getting the online transaction value increasing year on year, just as a sort of general feel for the trying to make the business more efficient. Do any of these actually strike a chord with you?
We've done a lot of things over the years. We did QVC television shopping channel as one form of e-commerce. What was great about that was you knew exactly what the box size was, how much the length of 45 centimetre tape cost, everything. You could price it, and as a model, you could separate your QVC out from your other general mail order. The thing that sort of struck me the moment that slide came up is you said consider the value proposition. Is a lot of the things too just how you think through the process. If you're on a box rate with DPD or whoever, and for example we're on a rate of 30 kilo flat rate, either volumetrically or by weight. So when you put a collection together, what you need to be doing is looking at increasing the average order value by maximizing the capacity of that box to give you the best return, because there's no point sending out a collection that weighs in at 32 kilos and you then get penalized cost-wise by the courier. So a lot of the thing with the things like the value proposition is, are you actually you say keep it simple, but at the same time you have to think the process through. And part of the simplicity of it is, right, I know I can get 12 plants in that box at that height and it weighs that much, and therefore I can cost out the tape, the box, everything, and know that I'm making money.
So effectively that's product management, isn't it? You're saying instead of just trying to go bigger and bigger, you're saying, can we do our products online that optimizes our weight or volumetric size in the distribution, as well as shifting stuff that we want to shift?
And it helps you cost things, because if you're making money, you want to know why you're making money. Hopefully you know that from the onset, but you want to know the bits of your business that are making you the money and the bits that aren't, because there's no point if you're doing well overall. If you've got one section that's hemorrhaging money and you build that up, all it means is you're hemorrhaging more money. So you have to be able to cost things out into different departments and look at the way you're offering the product to make sure that it is a profitable outlook.
Well, somebody's going to be suspicious that I put you up to this one, because you bring me back to my favorite subject, which is ledger codes. And it doesn't matter if you're on Xero, Sage, or having ledger codes so that you can attribute costs of sale to particular channels of distribution or particular promotions. Sometimes means that when you go back to do a gross margin, or you look at the P&L, you can at least split out some of those costs. Is that the sort of thing you're doing there, Rick?
I'm quite obsessed with that sort of thing. With our system, our back end, we have reports where we can break it down by the customer, the order values, what products they bought, when their last order was, and we can. If you don't know all the different bits of information that you need to know, that a pot costs you 4p, you have to know that the compost costs you 3p, the label's 2p, that the plant cost is this. You have to know that on average it's sat on the bed and the labour cost is as a component this much. And the more information you know, the more likely you are to be able to turn a profit. If you don't know what your cost base is, and you don't have individual ledgers and departments like, you know, that was income from QVC, that was income from the retail, that's web sales, that was a promotion. Then how can you know which bits of your business are performing well?
Can I be cheeky? What sort of what degree do you do that to? You've got ledger codes for all of these, so that you can look effectively break out the P&L.
Yeah, we can break down. It can become totally ridiculous with the amount that you can gain from it. It's the thing, like, too, you know, for example, MailChimp might be more expensive, but if you use that as as your hard mailing out list for your catalog, well, it compensates by becoming a cleansing list for your mailing out list. And so the more you can find the infinite things, but we break down, basically, we can tell you exactly how many of everything we have sold of each variety, when they sold, the customer, the order value, everything in really good detail.
Brilliant. Gentlemen, the time has marched on. So before I let you go, and thank you, can I have your predictions and top tips? Richard, can we start with you, perhaps? Sort of prediction for where e-commerce is going, and a quick top tip.
Predictions are upwards. I think that the one thing that COVID has done is driven everything towards online sales, and I don't really see that ending. Two little tips, actually. First thing is, make sure you've got good pictures on your website, because I'm always saying that the good thing about websites is they're in flower every day of the year. And the second thing is customer service. You know, the number of times if I've got a problem, I'll pick the phone up and ring the customer, and the response is always positive, always. Whereas emails are just not quite the same.
Brilliant. Thanks, Richard. Rob, I think that's one of yours, isn't it?
One of the things that we find, we get numerous emails, and I think the worst thing is that if you don't get back to them within 24 hours, sometimes you're seeing another email coming back from the people again saying, you didn't reply to my first email. And I think that is, you know, that is one of the things that, you know, first of all, straight away they're thinking, oh, do they want the business? Or, you know, am I going to get, you know, if I order now, are they going to take a long time? And that's one thing on all websites that, you know, when you look at things, and, you know, we always put the delivery dates.
Yeah.
And, you know, people ordering plants at certain times of the year, you know, we get them. The gladiolus, for instance, are on our website now, and they can order them now. And we've got emails 10 days later, I've not received the gladioli combs I've ordered. Right. Straight across the top of everything that we put out now is the delivery time of year.
So managing expectations. Neil,
Yes.
top tip and prediction.
Right, well, from what I've gathered this year, the first lockdown created up to 1 million new younger gardeners who buy online. By our current order volumes for next year, our proportion of production going to online retailers has gone from 20% to 40%. So, yeah, definite increase in younger gardeners, younger buyers who buy online.
It's going up, isn't it? Rick,
Yeah.
You want to?
Well, just since COVID, we have turned over twice what we turned over in 12 months in the last 6 months. The internet will be the future. It will. Week said there was an increase of 326 million spending, according to a study by the Body Shop on gardening. So the main thing is to have a presence there and to be able to get people. People can't buy from you if they don't know you're there and what you're selling. So you have to make sure that you're one of the people that is visible and that it's clear what you're selling.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rick. Anna, can we just have that last slide? Because I think you're duty bound to just to remind people of distance selling, not least because those regulations, which you can find on that link, are well worth considering, because it's costly if you can't keep that customer satisfaction level up there. And I think with that, we're passing to the last slide, which is back to Sarah.
Fantastic. Wow, what an amazing session. Thank you, John. That was high energy, and you got through so much information in that time. Thank you hugely to the panel. Rick, Rich, Rob, and Neil, we really can't thank you enough for giving up your time tonight, because that was, and for sharing all the information that you've shared about your own businesses. The recording will go up onto the website if you want to go back and have a look at any of the links or review any of the information. And if there's anything else, growers, that Tyfu Cymru can help you with, please do contact us direct. I think that's fantastic timing. I can't believe that, John. Well done. 7:31. So thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we'll finish there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye
you,
now.
gents.
Right.